Hi y'all, my name is Michelle Miyagi, and I said that in my next video I would share a little bit about myself because I'm just a stranger to y'all here. So where do I begin? You would think it would be an easy thing to do, um, but it really isn't. You feel kind of vulnerable and don't know what to share, what not to share, and how to share it, especially because it's so personal, your life story. Um, but I'm gonna try, and so here goes. I was born in Fort Lee, Virginia, and moved to Baton Rouge when I was a baby, so I grew up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. My parents met in the Army, and it was back in the day, it was 1964 when they had me, and so I'm biracial. It was an interracial marriage, which was basically illegal back then. So that's an interesting fact. Um, I had fun in my early childhood. My memories with playing with my brother outside are so wonderful. It was beautiful. All I wanted to do was stay outside all the time. And I remember the grass would grow really tall, I guess. There were those white and yellow wildflowers. And he and I would play, I know this is not PC these days, but we play cowboys and Indians. I mean, that was common back then. And it was so much fun. And I remember we would spend time at my grandmother's place where my aunts and uncles and cousins, we'd all get together, and there was always music. That whole family, they would sing together. I even have some cassette tapes from them singing, and it just gives me chills. And we would sing too, and there were recordings of my mother singing Over the Rainbow. That was her favorite song to sing. And I would sing Sakura, and I had a really froggy voice. I was only about 4 from the recording we had. It was cute. And then my brother was so silly and playful and goofy. We had so much fun. Um, so I have some really, really good memories. Well, then my mother, she started getting sick. I remember she would be on the toilet crying a lot and sad, and I didn't know what was going on. I was little, and I remember my father was a chemist, and he devised a keeping track of pill system, like they have the pill boxes today. Well, he would put the pills in test tubes for her to take. Well, I didn't know what was going on, but she had a nervous breakdown and found out that she was bipolar. And so I guess after that, I guess it was after my brother was born, and that she got really sick. And then when I was about 6, my dad moved out, and then she took us to Hawaii. And she was in the middle of, I guess, a manic episode, and then when she got to Hawaii, she crashed and was in a depressed state. So my dad didn't know where we were. I remembered his work phone number, and one of the social workers called, and so then my dad came and got us, and after that they got a divorce, and that was really sad time for me. In 2nd grade, I think I cried just about every day. But so that was when things started kind of changing for me. I started being more responsible and like a mother to my siblings, because I had a little sister too by then. And so that's when things started to get a little more stressful for me. And then I still had fun with music, and we'd still visit my mother in Gonzales, where my grandparents lived, and I would sing with my aunts and my cousins, and we'd put on shows and stuff. Back then, Carol Burnett was popular, and like Donny Osmond and David Cassidy. Oh God, I love David Cassidy. He was my favorite. And so I sang a lot, and we really enjoyed music, so I got good grades, and so my dad got me a violin, and I started playing violin. Well, then I still got good grades, and I used to sing all the time. I used to sing in the car, and anyway, he decided that for good grades I could have voice lessons, and then I started taking voice lessons and started learning opera, and that was when I was about 11 or 12 years old. And so I would practice all the time, so music was a big part of my life. I also loved to read books. I loved Little House on the Prairie, My Side of the Mountain, and I would just play outside, and I would pretend like I was living in nature and living off the land, and I just loved the outdoors. And what else? Oh, I love drawing too. I really love drawing. So I was highly creative. I would always make things and craft kits and all that. And I had a really good time. My favorite holiday was Halloween. I loved dressing up for Halloween. And I remember my favorite costume my mother had made me. It was a fairy costume, and it was that aqua, like turquoise color. And she cut out cardboard stars and put aluminum foil on them and sewed them to my dress. And so my favorite movie was The Wizard of Oz, and it reminded me of my mother too, because she loved singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and she had a beautiful voice. So I had a rich childhood, and it was wonderful. You know, it was great for the most part. And we also got to visit our relatives in California, and that was wonderful too. My grandmother would take us all roller skating, and she would buy candy and bake cookies and just spoil us. My uncles and aunts would take us and do stuff with us, and we'd go to the arcades and play video games all day. My favorite game was Tempest. This is when I got a little bit older, and we'd go skateboarding and jump roping, play jacks and all kinds of games, and we'd go swimming at my uncle's house. So I had just great memories from childhood. But then also there were other memories too, but I didn't realize what was going on until later. So as I got older, as a teenager, there was more pressure on me to like make good grades, do everything, clean the house, take care of my little brother. My father had gotten remarried, and I had a stepmother, and there was lots of strife in the house, especially after my littlest brother was born. So I had two brothers and a sister, and I was the oldest. And I was 13 years older than my youngest brother, and he was my half-brother. But he was so adorable, and I helped raise him till he was 5 years old. I loved him to death. He was just beautiful. But anyway, I digress. In high school, I guess I just felt like I had to be perfect, and I became anorexic for a while, got really skinny, and I guess it was a way for me to try to control my life, because I really didn't have much control. I was always trying to please my family, and I did. I mean, I was a good kid. So then around college time, I started off in music. Had a vocal scholarship in opera, and my voice teacher also was a professor at LSU, where I went. And I got a little taste of freedom then, and I started to rebel and hang out. I remember my best friend in high school. I used to love spending time at their house, and that really helped me a lot, because I had a lot of stress and going on in my house. And when I'd go over there, I felt really loved and taken care of, and we goofed around and played and had fun, and I was always so thankful for them. And so after that, I started rebelling. They wanted me to be kind of a diva, an opera diva, And I just was tired of being told what to do and uh, getting in trouble all the time and not having much say-so over my life. So I moved out and moved in with my mother for a while, and then I met my future husband in college, and we lived together for about 10 years while I worked my way through college. I took lots of different classes trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and I eventually settled on nursing. So I graduated in 1992 in nursing. I got a bachelor's in nursing, and for the last 27 years I've been a nurse, working mostly with geriatric psychiatric. But right now, I want to do something different. I realized my life really changed significantly once I had children. In 1996, I had my daughter, and in 2000, I had my son. And once I had children, a light bulb went off. And I realized that perhaps the way I grew up was not so healthy. And then I also realized that maybe I wasn't so healthy, and I started reading and educating myself because I wanted to be a good mother, and I wanted our children to have a healthy upbringing and be nurtured properly and have a good life and be able to cope better than I did, because I realized that I had lots of stuff going on that was not healthy, was maladaptive, and in response to the way I grew up. And I didn't want to repeat those same mistakes. And so I began the process when I had children of trying to figure things out. And so I was doing that. And I began simplifying and trying to take things off my plate and so I could be there for the kids and not send them to daycare. They never went to daycare. And I read and educated myself and started trying to figure things out. But what really changed everything was when my daughter started kindergarten. And I was the type of person, ever since I was little, I was always taking care of everybody, and I was very motherly. And doing that, sometimes my own personal needs and my self-care took the back seat. Well, my daughter started kindergarten, so I decided to catch up with my health checks, and I went to the eye doctor and found out I had a detached retina. And I had to have multiple surgeries, and it really jolted me. It was like a wake-up call. Then another big light bulb went off. And that's when I really started to deeply question everything. And if I let my vision, I almost went blind in my left eye. I still, to this day, can't see very well out of it, and I had to have multiple surgeries. And I'm a nurse. And I did not realize that I had a detached retina. Now, what does that mean? If I didn't realize that, then obviously I was out of touch, and something even worse could happen if I didn't figure it out. So that's when I realized that if I didn't take care of myself, then I wouldn't be there for my children. And that's when I started really taking time out for myself and simplifying. And I started journaling and all types of things I did to figure everything out and take care of myself and to fully love myself. And that's whenever I looked back on my life and I realized that lots of things were not healthy. And I don't blame anybody. I mean, that's what happens. Things get repeated. People don't know. They're not conscious. And there's emotional abuse, physical abuse. And unwittingly, I had, fallen into some of the same relationships in my adulthood, which repeated the patterns that were from my childhood. So eventually, I started figuring things out. And I reached the point where I basically surrendered. I guess they call it the dark night of the soul. And I wasn't happy. I mean, things were getting better and I was figuring things out, but there was something missing. And so without realizing it, I had been meditating and I had been journaling and reading lots of things, and I've started to realize that there's more to this than just objective reality, to this physical reality, to the external reality. I went on an inner spiritual journey, and one night in a dream, I had this experience, this metaphysical experience, which was like all this knowledge flooded me, and I realized like that we are all just wonderful and beautiful and truly loved, and we're the same in spirit, and that all of these things that we go through does not diminish us, that no matter what, we are eternal and we are loved, and we are loved, that's what we are, and that we're worthy no matter what happens to us. And so I really reached a level of forgiveness. I thought I had forgiven, but I really forgave at that time. And this was back in 2008. So ever since then, I realized that I needed to be responsible for myself, and that I needed to be loving of myself in order to be loving of others as well. And that's when I realized I needed to get divorced, and Hurricane Gustav came and a tree fell on our house, and so we were displaced and lived with our beautiful neighbor for a year and a half. But after we got in the house, then that's when I got divorced, because I realized I was just not in a healthy situation, and it wasn't healthy for the children either. So that was the hardest thing I ever had to do, and I made it though. And sometimes it felt like I was on in a Hallmark movie, like some people call one of those crybaby movies, or I was on an episode of Cops. I mean, the stuff that happened in my life, and looking back, I don't know how I did all I did in those years from 2010 up until now. I mean, things are finally settling down. I have an empty nest now. My kids are beautiful and they're in college, and I'm so proud of them. And although I have not been a perfect parent, I've made lots of mistakes. I think that I did, everything I could. When I knew better, I did better, and I'm still trying to do better. And what all of this has led me to is wanting to help other people who have gone through similar situations as I have, and I want to somehow help them be empowered to love themselves enough to make the difficult choices, to make the changes that are going to be healthy for them and for everyone else as well, and to keep growing and learning and evolving and sharing and helping until we all just help one another and love one another despite all our differences. And I want to help grow that, and I want to help people feel better about themselves and help them heal from past trauma or current trauma. And it can be so chaotic and overwhelming and painful and tricky, and I just would like to help if I can. And so that's what I've done. Throughout that, I started blogging in 2013, and I got remarried, and so that's been wonderful, although not perfect either. Gosh, there's stuff that I've learned all along the way, and I call them growing my heart and forgiving and getting to the layers in me that are still hurt, because when we're children, we just get by as best we can, and sometimes it takes life lessons to get at that wound and shine a light into it and heal. And so whenever shit happens, I tell myself, okay, here we go. It's a chance to heal. It's a chance to grow and learn and love even more deeply and help, because all of my challenging life experiences have helped me have compassion, and I can empathize, and also since I've been through it, I know how it feels, and I can help someone else who's also been through it. And we all go through stuff in life, and none of us escape unscathed, and we all need to love each other and help support each other, and that's what I want to do. I go by the logical heart knows best. It's because deep inside us, we have our love, the spirit within us that knows what's true, and it will always guide you, but you've got to get still and listen to it. Because your fearful voice, or what people call the ego, will tell you all kinds of crazy things that don't help. So, but it's hard not to listen to it. So I've learned over the years and through all of my challenges in life to hone into that voice from the logical heart, and I try to live by it as best I can. And so that's a rambling story about me, and I'm still going and trying, and I want to help, and I just want to spread more love and hope, and I want to help. Thank you so much.